Hi, everyone. I'm Giovanna Salazar. I'm the social media manager at SHIP. And today we're going to talk about what happens in a mentoring meeting with Andrea. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah. So, hi, my name is Andrea Godoy. I am a rising junior at the University of Miami. I'm currently studying biomedical engineering, and I am involved in the mentorship connection due to me being an intern at Medtronic this summer. In this cohort through SHIP, we actually were assigned a mentor directly that works at Medtronic that's involved in the Hispanic organization at Medtronic. So that's how I've been connected to mentorship.
Amazing. Thank you, Andrea.
Mhm.
Well, let's get right into it. So my first question for you is, can you walk us through just a typical agenda? What happens in these mentorship meetings? How do they start? How do they end? What happens?
Yeah, so usually at the beginning, I feel like towards the beginning of the relationship, it's a bit awkward at first. Definitely the first one that I ever had was more just getting to know about each other. My mentor had like an about me slide that he presented to me, and just kind of let me know like where he's coming from, not even just in a professional sense, but also just where he lives, where he's traveled. And that also gave me a chance to just like slow down and be like, this is not just a professional, but it's also someone that has experienced a lot of things in life. And then that was like pretty much like very first one. Now that I've been, a few months into like that relationship, it's more like it starts off with just catching up. We personally meet bi-weekly. Now we've done a little bit weekly since we're leading up to like the end of that relationship, and I have like some stuff to do like in terms of the intern. So I want to use like his skill set, but pretty much like I just catch up with him on what I've explored like the past like 2 weeks, either at Medtronic or anything that top of like the list that is just like what has happened since we last met. And then we kind of like that leads off to some follow-up questions. And if not, then I kind of just guide it into a here's what I am currently either struggling with or what I'm thinking of doing, what's coming up in my internship. So like for example, right now it's my intern presentation. So if it's structured about that, then I have to ask him like, what is my audience? So it usually builds off from there. Sometimes he'll even just be curious, like, what are you thinking so far? Like, how have you felt? And he'll tell me like straight on, he'll be like, be honest with me, apart from your project, like, how are you feeling right now? As Andrea in this space, do you have any questions? Do you have any like uncomfortable feelings? How can I help you, I guess, be a little bit more confident in yourself if you have any like doubts? So I guess it pretty much in general it's just like introduction, what have we caught up with, what I'm coming into it like, hey, I'm struggling in this specific area, and then closing off it'll be like, next time I'd love to catch up on this, or we didn't get to hit this part, I wanted to hit into it, can we schedule either an in-between meeting, just like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, just to talk about this one thing, what advice can you give me, or just see you next weekend, like see you next time, have a good rest of your day.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Like how you said, even though you guys have this set meeting time bi-weekly or weekly, it's also okay to reach out, hey, can we hop on a call real quick? I have a question about this. Like that is okay and it's normal to do.
Mhm.
And something I had a question about that you were talking about, you guys mostly talk about like professional academics in these meetings. Do you guys ever talk, have some kind of a relationship outside of that professional setting?
Well, I have the benefit of him being at the same office that I work in. So sometimes like I'll run into him like walking to the cafeteria. So like those like quick conversations. But most of it is pretty much like, hey, if I got some recognition or like a meeting, like a team meeting, then I'll just like quickly like Teams message him like, hey, just want to share with you like I just got like recognized, or like I had like this one-on-one with a meeting that I told you, like if I told him I'm gonna have a one-on-one with manager about like mid-performance evaluations and I'm a little bit nervous, then after that happens, I'll be like, everything went great. I can't wait to tell you like what we talked about like during our next meeting. So most of it is professional, but a lot of times, especially me being in a new city, new state, I'm originally from Miami. So being in Minneapolis and him living here, I've also had many questions of like, what should I do? What do you think of like what should I do on the weekends? What lake should I visit? What park should I visit? So he's been very helpful in that sense. So it's more just like not just what should I do at work, but also take advantage of this 2.5 month internship to also explore a whole different culture, state, and be more comfortable with like how different it is from Miami, and try to find like a little bit of home in between like a whole new state.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And I know like right now with this mentorship connection, there's already a structure based on the partnership with Medtronic.
Mhm.
But do you think after this, in some sort of way, you would still stay connected with this mentor, or do you think you would want to change it in a way?
Yeah, so I mean, maybe not as structured. I mean, I definitely it's helped that it's structured, because then that means that even if I'm busy, I am reminded to like have those like one-on-ones. Even though it may seem like hectic, sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'll make like, this meeting. It's like so like it feels a little bit hectic sometimes, just like structure it and you feel like a little bit overwhelmed. But I've personally found that once I'm already in that meeting, it's to a point where like a lot of like what he's doing is just trying to like give me a pause in like that week and just like talk out like the feelings that I'm feeling in that moment. So moving forward, I mean, I definitely think that I'd love to keep in contact with him. I've already told him that like you can't get rid of me. But in a not so like in a real like sort of way, I have benefited so much from him. He's super like highly like he's achieved so much in his career that I definitely like admire him as sort of like I would love to be in that position. His trajectory across Medtronic, I'm very fortunate to have been paired up with a mentor that is very similar like in terms of mindset. uh and that was also like something that has helped me so much connect with him, because he's like started off like more technical, now he's more like people like program management, so like that seemed like I guess timeline is where I would see myself. So having someone like that is like, I don't want to stop talking to him just because I left the internship, because during the school year you're also having a lot of moments, presentations, applying to internships, applying to jobs, having interviews, so that's also something that definitely benefits me. So I'd love to still be in contact with him, maybe not every month, but not have it be like dwindled off.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're having a good experience. My next question is, what are the best things a mentor or mentee can do to make a meeting go well?
I think that honestly, just being 100% present in that moment is the first most basic thing that you should be doing. Making sure that you are appreciating that other person's time. I know that definitely when it's in a more like professional setting, and especially like these mentors are professionals in their field, and this is something that they do outside of their part-time job. So, or not part-time, their full-time job. So that just goes to show that they really do want to help and they want to be there present for you. So kind of recognizing that effort as a mentee, I feel like gives me a more, I appreciate it even more because he's going out of his way to meet with me. If I haven't had a chance to like schedule the next meeting, like if I haven't put on the calendar, like he'll be like, hey, I know you haven't set it up, but like I know we usually meet at this time, like, and then he'll send me the invite. So it's kind of like I'm glad that it's not just like very one-sided. He's definitely been helping me out, like, hey, I know the internships are coming and the final presentation are coming up soon. Do you want to move our meeting a little bit closer to that day so you can practice? So I feel that the most important thing is being present, making sure that you're checking in on each other, as well as probably just taking it very like chill. Apart from it being like a more like professional thing, I feel like I go into it nowadays not being so like formal. It's more like catching up with a friend or someone that is like older than you, obviously, and is more experienced than you. But at the end of the day, you both have like very similar mindsets, being from the same culture as well. Like we're both Hispanic, even though we're from different countries, like we have a very specific like lens that we look through things. So having that shared mindset, even though it's not the exact same, it helps form that connection so much easier. So if you just come into it as a more like natural thing, and you talk about like missing certain foods or wanting to be like back in your home country, like for vacation and such, it's something that I feel like it's something that you don't get with every mentoring connection, but through mentorship, you get paired someone that is very much a lot similar to you.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, it is important I think even if you're not doing a mentorship program, like through a structure like this, like if you're finding someone, something important you might be looking for, something you guys have in common. Because
Mhm.
I think after you find something you have in common with someone, then after that, the rest is smooth sailing.
Right, yeah. And it gives you something to talk about if, for example, like you don't know how to go across like some specific like subject, or maybe you're trying to think of what should I even ask. You can start off with more simple things. It doesn't have to be all like work related questions. Like I've gone out to him and just been like, what are good foods around here? Like what have you experienced like moving from Costa Rica to come here? And so questions like that is something that you wouldn't think of asking for a mentor, but it helps you just be more connected with that person for it to not be so like some sort of like a barrier between like mentor mentee, but more like mentor and mentee. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And you become more comfortable, you can ask those tough questions you might be scared to ask. It makes it more comfortable.
Yeah.
Uh, Alrighty. Well, you talked about being 100% present. Is it something you recommend and that has worked for you? Is there anything else you have thought about? When you think about your best meetings with your mentor, what made it a really good meeting, if there's anything that stands out to you?
I feel like for me, the best ones that I've had have been whenever I meet with him after either one of us has had like a very important or like special thing happen. So like when I started my internship, like that first meeting afterwards was like I couldn't think of anything. I was most of it was talking about like this is so incredible, this is so exciting. I can't imagine like I couldn't imagine myself in this moment, and then even just imagining all the stuff that I would see, all the things that I would experience. So usually like that first time was amazing. Also, like back in April, I got like the amazing chance to go to the White House with SHPE for like their policy briefing. So that was like that happened on Tuesday. We met that Friday, and he was what like tell like what happened, like how did this come about, like how do you feel? So that like meeting, for example, like it wasn't all like professional, but it was more just like this just happened, this is amazing. And he's had like promotions and different like things that has happened in his life as well that he's been able to like share with me. So those are usually the ones that I think of when it's like you don't really go into it thinking like it's gonna be like all fun or like it's not gonna be super like you think that's gonna be a lot like very formal, but there's a lot of meetings in between that aren't necessarily what you would think of as formal, but it's so beneficial like nonetheless just to like have a better relationship with each other.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And earlier you talked about meeting either weekly or bi-weekly. How long are those meetings usually?
So for us, when we first started the connection before I came here to the internship, we would meet I think the first 2 months it was just monthly, about an hour. Then leading up to it, we changed to bi-weekly, still about an hour because I had just so many questions. And nowadays, if we're meeting bi-weekly, sometimes I do schedule like a whole hour. Sometimes it goes a little bit shorter. Sometimes if we do meet the whole hour, but that just allows us to not feel rushed. Like that just is what works for us. Because even like while like let's say I come in and I only have like 3 questions, those 3 questions may lead to like follow-ups and like a bigger conversation. So for us, like that has been like what works for us. I feel like going into it like now, like or I guess going out of this whole experience, I think that definitely when you're having meetings with someone that is trying to get to know you and getting to know you so that they can know how to better help you, it's better to overestimate a little bit, even by just like 15 minutes, like instead of if you know it's going to take 30 minutes, schedule 45, just so that you can have that more, you're not always like looking at the time and checking like, oh, I gotta go. And that just allows you going back to like what I said earlier, like being that 100% present in the meeting.
Yeah, that's a really good point and good advice to always just go over at least 15 minutes. It's helpful. You don't feel rushed. So thank you for sharing that. And when it comes to scheduling these meetings, is it usually, the mentor like coming up with a schedule? Is it you? Is it both?
Yeah, so definitely when we came into the actual internship, my schedule changed from prior to it. So I told him like like, give me just 1 week to figure out like if I have a recurring meeting, if I have like how much is my work style, or I guess the work schedule that I would have. And then from there, it pretty much just was I would say that it's pretty much both. We usually meet like bi-weekly, so we knew that that was like going into it, like that is what it was. But since his schedule is not always like clear cut every single week, we try to just have it like either 2 weeks out or a week out from our like meeting week. We just schedule like that specific day. Usually I'll like put like a meeting time like on his schedule, be like, hey, does this time work for you? Sometimes like he'll move it or I'll move it, and like it's not like that big of a deal. Like that is, something may come up. But sometimes, like I said like earlier, it's just if I maybe like forget or I have so much that I'm doing that I forget to like book it. We also like help each other, and like if one of us hasn't scheduled it, then the other one will go ahead and just like put it on the calendar, just so that like we can just be like, oh, we need to schedule this. Like let's not let's make sure that we're not going through the week and then we miss like that week that we were supposed to meet and such.
Gotcha. Amazing. Well, those are all the questions I have for you today, but now I want to just give you the chance. And if you don't have anything, that's fine. If you have any advice you want to share to mentees, or just anything you wish you would have known as you were starting, looking for mentors and such.
I feel like, I mean, most of what my advice would be, I feel like I shared, but if I were to say something just like very like drive the point home is, I know it could be very scary, and especially like I'm first gen student to college, so talking with like professionals in this space that's like very big, especially like Medtronic, it's the largest medical device company in the world. So going into it, I was very worried that like, would it be too big of like a barrier? And when I got my mentor, like he's like, director of his area, so like it's great because that way I can see someone that like has gone through so much, and can help me grow in that sense, because he's had a lot of mentoring connections of his own. So that's a good thing that I feel like going into it, recognizing that there was a journey that this person had to go through to get to where they are. And quite a bit of it, most people that I've talked to that are in his level of like very high up, like leaders in the company, have said that one of the main things that they benefit from are mentoring connections. And they'll say like, I had this mentor when I was starting up, that like changed how I view my leadership, changed how I view my work relationships, how to present myself in the office. So having that like sense of like, this person has gone through what I'm going through before, helps it be more, they're not just saying this because they think that they know everything, but it's because like they've had similar experiences. So it very much like, it helps me just calm down and be like, this is not the first time that they've done this. And they've been on the receiving end as well, like where I am coming from. So it helps be more, I guess, friendly and not as stressful, because it's like, this is probably just at this point, like he's just my friend.
Well, that's good to hear that over time, you will get comfortable. I mean, it's just like meeting anyone else new or starting something else new. Like it's normal to
Right.
be this. But over time it'll get better.
Yeah,
Well,
and it's super valid. It may be stressful because you fear what you don't know a lot of the times. So having someone like, especially like, I'm very glad that I started that mentoring connection before I got to my internship. I feel like that was very key because it helped answer a lot of questions that I had of like, what am I supposed to wear to the office? What am I expecting? So I came into it knowing a little bit more than what I would if I didn't have any insight to what the internship would look like or what the company would look like as a whole.
Amazing.